scholars working in international relations, basically interpolitics. Why? Because a lot of things are taking place in our region, basically South Asian continent, subcontinent, basically. In that way, we have to work on different emerging issues. We can see how Pakistan is reacting, how other, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Maldives, Sri Lanka, all these countries, even Nepal, how they are reacting actually in reference of India, basically. So with this, I would like to extend my thanks to basically other panelists of this session like Professor N. Kumara Sen Raja sir, Professor John Sema, Professor A. Muthulakshmi, Professor, and of course, one of my great friend, Nan Kumar MS, who has kindly accepted the invitation of Vikas to be part of this very important discussion as panelist. So with this, Rajiv has rightly mentioned like how we got a point to start with a project on this India-Afghanistan relation. The point come to us from Honorable BC sir. He's from physics background, of course. That is what he has already mentioned. But he has very sharp observation of politics, not only domestic but also international politics. That's why he always encouraged us to basically organize basically conferences, talks, lectures, and do produce good quality papers and books. And this is what this project it outcome of his basically idea. He has given that target to us basically to come up with a conference, and later that may be published in form of books. And that is what he called me up and he suggested, Santesh, do you organize a conference on this very important topic? Because this is something very important after the abrogation of Article 370. That was the topic, that was the issue, sir mentioned while he was discussing that point with me actually. But that what happened after that discussion, I got sick. Later on, Rajiv hold that responsibility and he has conducted this conference nicely and very timely. And I played very small or little very little role in organizing the conference. Basically at that time I was not so much active, like, because of several reasons. But it was conducted in CUH. A lot of participants participated in that conference. They presented their paper on this India Afghanistan relations through different lens, basically different perspectives. Basically they wanted to look into India Afghanistan relations at that time. So we thought what points we need to basically keep in focus while we are talking about this very important topic, because a lot of things are changing after this abrogation of Article 370, and the repercussion, the impact of abrogation of Article basically 370. It has impacted its regional dynamics, particularly in terms of India, Pakistan, India, Afghanistan, and Central Asia, and basically beyond that, West Asia. What we're talking about extended neighborhood nowadays, basically. So neighborhood and extended neighborhood policies are important for Indian perspective. That's why we wanted to have a basically important outcome of this project. I think somebody is speaking.
No,
Yes.
sir. Please continue.
So yeah. So with this, we started working on this project, and it has taken a long time to come up basically in form a book. And of course, we tried to include all the points. We received several papers. This is also important fact here to let you know. We received several papers, almost 30 papers we received from different, paper presenters and scholars who has contributed to this very important, outcome. But we decided to keep only those papers which are very relevant and which are good in terms of quality, which are maintaining quality. And so we picked 13, 14 papers that time. And this in present structure of the book, if you go through that, you'll find out like there are 16 chapters, including introduction and postscript, which is being written by Professor Chintamani Mahapatra sir, who has been very kind enough to contribute his opinion to this very important project, actually, this book. And we experienced there's another important, uh, challenge while we started working on this project, and that was basically how and what the title should be of this book, because it has very diverse issues within it. So it was not easy for us to decide the title of the book. That was another difficulty we faced at that time while we planned to submit this project basically to Palgrave Macmillan, because Palgrave Macmillan has very rigorous process in basically publishing books. So we thought, what should we keep as a title of this book? So later we realized emerging dynamics uh, of India-Afghanistan relation. That is what we wanted to keep, as title of this book, Emerging Dynamics of India-Afghanistan Relations, Regional Cooperation versus Global Geopolitics. That is what we planned. And as as per our plan, that is what I accepted. No, accepted by Palgram Macmillan. They were so happy to hear this, title. They were this communicated us like this is very nice. No, we are going to accept this proposal, and we are going to publish your project with this title only: Emerging Dynamics of India-Afghanistan Relations, Regional Cooperation versus Global Geopolitics. Because this has few chapters very much linked with South Asian subcontinent, and there's a few chapters which are moving beyond boundaries basically of this particular region. So in that way, we try to keep it global in terms of local to global, basically, yeah, domestic, original to basically global in that way. So there are 16 chapters I have already mentioned. Raju have nicely elaborated that we tried to look into historical background of India-Afghanistan relations so that we could get a sense what kind of relationship we enjoyed in past. So for that, we kept a chapter on India-Afghanistan relation, tracing historical roots from the Buddhist era. That is what we tried to find out because we all are aware about like what kind of cultural relations we enjoyed in past with Afghanistan, with this cultural, and basically cultural, historical, connect with basically that particular region. That's why whenever we talk about Akhand Bharat, that includes basically a big portion of Afghanistan too within it. So with that reference we try to look into basically our past history too. So that's why the first chapter, the very first chapter after introduction, we wanted to keep a historical background. In that way we designed that way, chapter 2. Chapter 3, the geopolitical significance of Afghanistan for India in emerging world order. That is what we wanted to come up with that, because geopolitics is one of the important topic nowadays in terms of politics, because that determines what kind of relationship we're going to enjoy our neighboring countries or the countries which are far from basically that particular country or from our country. That is what we wanted to have. In that sense, I wanted to look into different multiple issues which are directly or indirectly impacting the relationship of India and Afghanistan, because Pakistan is very much there, Iran is there, Central Asian countries are there, China is also important player within that periphery. So what kind of geopolitics is there? Why we should pay so much attention or India-Afghanistan relation? That was another important or compelling factor for us to go for that geopolitical significance of Afghanistan for India in emerging world order, basically. And in present scenario, a lot of things are changing. 1990s onwards, what happened? We all are knowing the entire system of Afghanistan was abolished or replaced by basically Taliban, which now known as Taliban 1.0, we can call it. Later, what happened? Democratic system, restored in Afghanistan. Again, they are back as Taliban 2.0. So, with that, keeping that fact in mind, what kind of experience Afghanistan is having in basically present era? That is what called basically extremism in Afghanistan, its impact on India, Afghanistan, ASEAN relation, ASEAN region. So why we wanted to keep that? Because that is one of the most important or compelling basically factor, or we can say that that is something which forced Afghanistan to become especially a country of Talibanis basically. In that way, that is no fundamentalism, terrorism, extremism. All these issues are there basically, which are still persisting in Afghanistan. So which are impacting the entire region, and that has very direct impact upon India too basically. So with that, we kept a chapter on extremism in Afghanistan, its impact on India and ASEAN region. Later, what happened? Another aspect we wanted to look into religious radicalism in Afghanistan, which we designed. And of course, if we're not talking about China, so the entire project is incomplete because China is important. We all are knowing what kind of project they are running in name of BRI and CPEC. Of course, this CPEC is one of the important threatening basically project of China. While we look from Indian perspective or through the lens of Indian national security perspective, actually. So we drafted a basically chapter on China factor in India Afghanistan, which was basically written by which is basically written by Professor Manish of Central University of Gujarat. He is presently dean and senior scholar of international studies. And later we included another chapter in evolving India-Afghanistan relation, the BRI context, which I have already elaborated, like BRI, how much important BRI is, because China is already trying to influence all the countries across the globe, which that is basically Africa, Latin America, basically Europe, South Asia, Southeast Asia, any other region basically the world. China is trying, to play basically a very safe, game to basically control the present new world order basically. So but we can't allow, because we are also emerging country. In the days to come, we are going to compete directly with China. So with that we reference, we have to elaborate, we have to look into that perspective, what kind of impact VRI has basically over India, on India basically. So with that, keeping that fact in mind, we kept a chapter on evolving India-Afghanistan relation. And later what happened, we decided to go for this China Russia towards the Taliban, which Indian perspective, evolving approach of the China Russia towards the Taliban, because these two countries are very important in reference to Afghanistan, because these two countries also somehow direct or indirect connected with Afghanistan. So in that way, what kind of impact on basically Afghanistan from these two countries, China and basically Russia, and that how that is impacting India too. We try to look into that. And later, India's evolving role in Afghanistan under Taliban 2.0. If we remember, we go in past basically, what we'll find out, like at that time, while this Taliban 2.0 regime came in basically power in Afghanistan, they took over the power of Afghanistan. What happened? They A lot of people started talking about like India is going to lose the grip over basically Afghanistan, because we're not going to have good relationship with Afghanistan. But we can see how the present government has developed a good relation with the present Taliban regime, because it's not something we're going to look into their domestic policy. This is not responsibility. This is not duty of India to go into Afghanistan or any other country of the world basically, and to bring reform in that their system, or to bring basically particular political order basically. So in that way, India decided to go with government only. Whether that government is led by basically A group, B group, or C group, that doesn't matter for us. That's why we are having good relationship with basically Myanmar. We are having good relationship with Russia. We are having good relationship with Afghanistan. At the same time, we are having good relationship with other multiple countries, which are democratic countries like European countries, America, these countries. So in that, we try to keep this chapter in our project. Later, we included chapter 10, an assessment of Indian and European stakes and concerns Afghanistan post 2021, because European Union is also a very important stakeholder in Afghanistan, basically uprising, basically a political uprising. What kind of problems, what kind of developments, what kind of projects they are having in Afghanistan are being backed by basically mostly by European countries. So in that way, what and how Europe is looking at the incidents which are taking place in Afghanistan, and how that is going to impact India, and how European countries are keeping India basically in that discourse. That is what we wanted to look into. That's why we included this particular chapter. Later, what happened? We wanted to discuss a very important agreement, which known as Doha Agreement and Afghanistan relation, because Doha Agreement is one of those agreements which has with very direct impact over India's basically geopolitics of this particular region. So we wanted to keep a chapter on that. Later, India's Afghanistan challenge, mapping viability of maritime routes. This is also important no issue coming to us basically nowadays, because all the countries are so much concerned. They are doing a lot of basically thing in reference of this maritime is routes, because this is important. If you are becoming basically a powerful country in terms of economics, in terms of security, in terms of a strategic country, you have to have basically very strong hold over basically maritime routes. So why we can help basically Afghanistan to have basically a good connect in terms of trade relationship with the countries. How can India can play a vital role in that, and that is what India is already doing, because Afghanistan aspiring, led by basically President Taliban 2.0 government, they wants to have support from Indian government, and that is what we have already started providing them. And of course we included that chapter, keeping that fact in our mind. Later, India Afghanistan relations and the geopolitics of water scarcity, and that's also important aspect we are looking into, because there are a lot of sources through which we are getting water actually, that is Himalayan range. Himalayan range is very much shared by all these countries, including India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, China, Nepal. So we have to keep all these actors engaged while we are drafting, any policy, what which are related, which is basically related with this water, basically distribution of, so allocation of water, basically water agreements in terms, we can say. So keeping that fact in our mind, we wanted to have a chapter on basically water, scarcity, that wow, why and how much that is impacting India's, relation with basically this particular region, in particularly in context of Afghanistan. India-Afghanistan relationship study of developmental perspective. Why I'm telling this project, that is what the 14th chapter of this project is. We wanted to look into what kind of development projects are taking place in Afghanistan. That was the reason we included this. And if you go into basically the developmental process, you'll get India is very important country in assisting, basically in helping, basically in providing aid to Afghanistan, basically for several developmental projects that, and they are taking place. If you go into basically health projects, if you go into basically their construction of parliament, if you go into if you look into basically this development of dams, in the India's role is like comprehensive, comprehensive. And India's assisting basically the present Talibani government too. That's why Taliban is having good relationship with India. India is like, in opinion, like we have to help all those countries which are in need, whether that is led by A group or B group. So in that way, we are having differences in terms of values. Like we are asking them to restore democracy. We're not basically a country which believes such, regime. But at the same time, we have to understand we don't have so much role to play in Afghanistan, any of the country. Why we are so much restricted? That is the reason. But India is playing very, very, smartly, politics in that particular country, or diplomacy is utilizing basically diplomacy, which also known as soft power diplomacy nowadays. We are exercising that diplomacy. That's why a lot of people are telling India is here, India is there, India is everywhere, and that's called basically smart diplomacy. If you are everywhere, if you are enjoying good relationship with all the blocks, and that is what we have learned basically now since 1947 onwards. So in that way, we are maintaining a good relationship to Afghanistan. This 15th chapter which we kept, which I've already elaborated, is significance of soft power in fortifying India-Afghanistan relations, because that is very vital, component nowadays. None of the country in the world, whether that is America, with Russia or China, or any other country, they can't, influence the behavior of other countries by using hard power in this present world order. So what we can use is soft power. We have to have all the countries in loop by, providing all kind of assistance, by influencing them by your values, cultural values, or basically political values or cultures, basically language, festivals, several issues you may include within that soft power regime. So that's why we kept that point in our book. And the last, we got postscript from Professor Chintamani Mahapatra sir, who has, provided his overview on this very important, project. And he was the one who delivered basically valedictory address in our conference. That's why we requested him to please, sir, share your, opinion for or this project, and he provided that us to us basically. And that's why the 16th chapter is basically postscript. So with this, I'm just going to conclude my, speech in a few seconds by saying this is one of the important contemporary topic and contemporary book basically, and which includes several issues within it, from basically culture to politics, from economics to strategy, from geopolitics to regional politics. And a number of issues are there in this book. If you want to read this book, do read. And I have already, said that's e-copy. If somebody wants to have e-copy from us, definitely for academic purpose, we can provide that copy. Yes, for not circulation, because that is against the Palgrave Macmillan's policy. But yes, if somebody is willing to read, do request us so that we could provide that. And with this, I am happy to have such, bunch of, scholars or experts basically who are doing a lot of great work in their field, and they have joined as panelists. I'm expecting them to basically their observe their, share their views on this particular book basically. So with this, I'm stopping here, and I'm handing over this mic to coordinator of this program. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Okay. So thank you so much, sir, for sharing with us the background journey behind this book, and also covering all the chapters, the content of all the chapters in the book. Thank you so much. So now moving on, I'll invite our first panelist of today's session, Dr. Nanda Kishore, MS. He's the head and associate professor at the Department of Politics and International Studies, Pondicherry University. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Manorama. Just for the bandwidth sake, I'll perhaps switch off my video
No
at the
issues.
outset. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, sir.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be with this organization of well knitted scholars. My respects to the Honorable Vice Chancellor who's present here, and also huge congratulations to Professor Rajiv Kumar Singh and my dear friend Shantesh Kumar Singh. He's someone who doesn't rest at all. He's someone who keeps producing works after works, and this is perhaps one of his best that I've come across. And without much ado, let me enter into the job that's been given to me in the limited time that's available. Perhaps I'll try summarizing some of those components, and I'm leaving also some portions of it for the others and other panelists also. This particular work, Emerging Dynamics of India-Afghanistan Relations, Regional Cooperation versus Global Geopolitics, offers actually a very detailed and a thoughtful analysis of the intricate relationship between India and Afghanistan, with its mix of historical depth, geopolitical analysis, and also a focus on regional dynamics. The book is absolutely a value addition to the literature on South Asian international relations itself. As I said, that Professor Rajiv and Professor Shantesh, they both are well regarded as scholars of political science and international relations. They bring a very well nuanced understanding of the interplay between regional cooperation and global geopolitics, which has been a defining factor of the relationship itself for very long decades. Now, as Professor Shantish already introduced the number of chapters that are existing here, they have a varied sort of themes and everything, invariably revolving around the Indo-Afghanistan relationship, which is very intricate and a very thoughtful one, because all of us actually remember that the moment Taliban took over, there was this particular scenario that most of them or most of the pundits on Afghanistan started talking about, that India will be in trouble now. India needs to manage its relationship. It's going to be three front. We'll have Taliban attacking us. We will have Pakistan attacking us. We'll have China using the same situation, and India will be in a very, very critical situation. But to everyone's utter shock, and the way India has played its geopolitics, there were, I like the very title, the way it has been spoken about as global geopolitics. I think India has finally learned the grammar of geopolitics. For a long time, it was suffering. Now, I think it has understood. Otherwise, it always used to stay at the periphery and then be a naysayer, or be sort of a power that would never say anything on face. But the way we have handled the situation, we haven't given a minimal space also for Taliban to say anything against India. At the same time, we are managing the way the relationship have to be understanding the realist way of looking at a state, whichever or whosoever is actually leading with. And that shows the maturity that has come in Indian politics, that maturity that has come in India's foreign policy, and the way India's foreign policy itself is getting molded in the last 10 years. And that's precisely something that has come out invariably in this particular work, which is something that I'm very happy. For example, let's say the third chapter in this, it's called the geopolitical significance of Afghanistan for India in emerging world order, is a very, very well written article by Shantesh ji, Ravi Shankar Raj, and Radha. There's a point in page number 40. They make a very, very pertinent reference to where they say Afghanistan's strategic position at the intersection of three major geopolitical regions, that's South Asia, Central Asia, and the Middle East, makes it a key player in the region. Afghanistan is bordered by Iran, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, China, and Pakistan. We have Professor Sharad Soni, who himself is an expert and a very dear friend, who's an expert in many of the regions that they have spoken here. It says that subsequently that Iran and other Middle Eastern nations supply India with crude oil, which is imported into India via Afghanistan. Now, India's long-standing relationship with Iran and its expanding relations with Central Asia nations can be leveraged to enhance India's regional strategic presence. What this particular paragraph talks about is, one is the profound geopolitical significance the region has. Secondly, it's also not taking a negative turn of the whole issue by saying that we are threatened with this, we are threatened with that, we'll be put into this sort of problem. But rather, it says where it can leverage this particular scenario using Central Asia as the way we are using, and at the same time talking about how important is the strategic presence itself. Now, this is one very interesting, because the chapter actually begins off with Jelen's idea of geopolitics, and it talks about how over a period of time it has come in. And there is also this very interesting chapter, though every chapter is interesting. I've gone through in the limited time that I had, because it's also not a small volume, and I could go through, but some of them were really, really interesting for me, like the chapter on religious radicalism in Afghanistan. Where Rajiv Kumar Singh and Priya Gautam have contributed. It's very interesting because it looks under the Taliban 2.0, where it talks about the ISKP's ability to control areas which has been significantly diminished owing to the elimination of key leaders and its weakened presence itself. Now, however, it says that after losing their last stronghold, the group changed tactics. Rather than pursuing territorial control, ISKP has adopted subtler approaches such as urban warfare campaigns to erode the Taliban's legitimacy among the population. Now, this part of the geopolitics are these internal regional dynamics is rarely brought in most of the mainstream works, which I was exemplarily happy about the way Rajiji has brought in. Now, then he goes on to give certain numbers that in 2021 ISKP's attacks increased, rising from 83 in 2020 to 334, with all the factual details and other things. Now, these are the type of works that perhaps will help a lot of students to actually quote them, utilize them in their academic work. Otherwise, it just becomes a jargon. We go on giving our own gyan. It doesn't end up anywhere. That's where this is very interesting. He goes on to say that the Taliban-led government's lack of experience and governance capabilities could create fertile ground for other extremist organizations like ISKP to flourish. The Taliban must balance adhering to jihadist principles while seeking international legitimacy, which has led to conflict with groups such as ISKP. This is, I'm quoting from page 81, which is also very, very interesting the way I looked at it. And anyway, there are lovely chapters, let's say, on China, because something that we just cannot give away, or we cannot leave it out, because of all the players across the world, if there's one player who was standing behind Taliban solidly, that was China. And there were, I think, Professor Manish, again, another very dear friend from Central University, Gujarat, goes on explaining the type of proximity and the economic clout that China enjoys in all these places, knowing that how well Taliban will aid to their BRI, how important it is for them. And it says that China's deepening engagement with the Taliban regime raises crucial questions about its potential impact on India's interests. For example, China's potential investments in Afghan infrastructure projects could offer greater connectivity and access to Central Asian markets, directly competing with India's established trade routes through Chabahar port and Iran. Now, this is absolutely rooted in realist tradition, making India to understand that don't get carried away by the type of relationship. But in the past, we burnt our hands in foreign policy whenever we have not pragmatically dealt with players. Now, there where I liked each of these chapters, the way they are written. Aparna is also again another good friend who has written Evolving India-Afghanistan Relations, the BRI in the context. And then Shantesh has again contributed quite a few. Shreya has contributed here. And Ladu is another good friend from Rajasthan. He has written a very good chapter on India's Afghanistan challenge, looking at the maritime routes, how crucial they are, at the same time, how important they are. And then this is something that I most of the time see missing out in most of the edited volumes. Something like what Neeraj has written, another dear friend, who looks into water scarcity as a component, because people like Brahmachalani and others have been saying that the next war, if it's going to be, or the world war is going to be, it's going to be based on water. We have either excess of water, no water at all, and they are going to create more and more sort of problems. And very seniors have contributed here, like Professor Chintamani. Certain core strengths of the work, let me highlight few of them, and otherwise I'll not be doing justice to. There is a in-depth historical contextualization. That's the first one. Now, both the authors, in their opening remarks itself, begin with a historical overview tracing India-Afghanistan relation from ancient civilization ties to the present. And the book also effectively situates their interactions within the broader historical framework of trade, cultural exchanges, and shared heritage. The authors have also covered a lot of issues in the post-independence period, particularly India's support to Afghanistan during the Cold War and its relationship with various Afghan governments, providing an essential backdrop for understanding the current dynamics. And then this particular component, which I say is exemplarily well researched, supported by extensive references, making it accessible to both scholars and the general readers. Now, that's also very important. If general readers are also able to use this, and
जी
that's the
एग्जैक्टली
value addition that I see.
एग्जैक्टली
Second is integration of regional geopolitics. Now that's something that I see as a value addition, because we don't expertise in geopolitics in India. We teach only international relations, and there are only few places. And if there are places where there's a mention of geopolitics, it's only for the namesake. Really, there's no such prolonged discussions on the geopolitical component. But this work essentially has so many components, bringing in China, bringing in Pakistan, bringing in the BRI. This, and there is an argument that's made in the book that all the regional actors often pose significant challenges to India's interest in Afghanistan, complicating New Delhi's attempt to establish a stable and cooperative relation. Then at the third level, there is an analysis of global geopolitical shifts, which is also very important, because we are looking at global parts, especially the United States and Russia, on India Afghanistan relations. It also provides a detailed account of the US led intervention in Afghanistan post 9/11 and its subsequent withdrawal in 2021, assessing how these developments have actually altered the regional balance of power. The discussion of Russia's historical involvement from the Soviet era to the modern day strategic interest adds actually further layers to the analysis itself. Now, the fourth level, there is a policy recommendation and strategic insight, which is also very
Hmm.
important. After all, at the end of the day, national interest should drive most of the works that we do. We work for the nation. We don't work for the governments, but we work for the nation. But nation is led by governments, and governments will look up to academicians. If we have to live up to or come to the level of the United States, where academicians are brought into the governments, academicians are brought into the policy, we should have implications for the policy. And here, where I found the work to be absolutely speaking about quite a few policy recommendations aimed at enhancing India's engagement with Afghanistan, looking at strengthening economic ties, leveraging soft power through cultural diplomacy, deepening regional cooperation with other partners like Iran, Central Asian states. And these insights are absolutely timely and practical given the evolving geopolitical landscape and the post Taliban sort of a resurgence that we see where Taliban has come in actually. And it also provides at the fifth level rich data and the case studies,
Hmm.
which are something that I read about in all the 16 different chapters. Absolutely interesting one. And something that also touches upon there here are some of the flagship projects about the Salma Dam and the Afghan Parliament building. These all show that in which other ways India has got engaged into. Now, given like any other book, every book will have its limitation, because you're editing a book and there are a lot of authors and who have come together to write, and there are these overlapping components that most of them may highlight on the same components again and again, and they may find it logical to have it in their own work even if the editors ask to cut it down. You cannot absolutely do a caesarean of each of the works. And then that's something that's visible in some of the works where certain repetitions are there, and these are absolutely normal in edited volumes. I don't find it as an issue. But one perhaps a component that I don't see it as a criticism, perhaps I will say a limitation, is limited engagement with the Afghan voices itself. Well, the
Exactly.
book actually provides a thorough analysis of India's perspective. It falls short in integrating Afghan voices and viewpoints, which perhaps could have strengthened much more. I can understand the limitations that are there, but the perspectives of the Afghan policymakers, let's say, some of them actually are accessible. Some of the people who have been there before, some of them, civil society and academics are largely absent, because we also have quite a few students who are actually working or who are on fellowship in India. Some of the scholars who have been there, former diplomats who are there in India. Anybody could have perhaps looked at that component, and a chapter could have brought in more voices, I think. So that's my perspective. But I can understand the limitations of the editors when they have to reach out to all these people. There's a timely framework, and then the copy editors will have their own timeline. Then the publishers will put up their own timeline. It's not easy to bring out works with international publishers like Palgrave. That is one of the things that I say, because a deeper engagement with Afghan experience and aspirations perhaps could have taken it to the next level, and it could have enriched the book. That's what my understanding is. It could have been more balanced as well. But nevertheless, in conclusion, we have to say that this particular work serves as a very significant analytical compendium for understanding the intricacies of India-Afghanistan relations amidst a rapidly shifting geopolitical landscape, by situating bilateral ties with the larger framework of the regional rivalries as well as global strategic imperatives. Both things, let me put it that way, highlight how Afghanistan serves as both an arena of cooperation and a theater of contestation for regional and global powers. The book also underscores India's dual strategy of leveraging soft power through development initiatives and balancing geopolitical reality shaped by Pakistan's destabilizing role and China's expanding influence. The Singhs convincingly argue that the involving or the evolving security architecture in South Asia, particularly after the US withdrawal and the Taliban's return, demands a recalibration of India's foreign policy. Now, for India, navigating its interest in Afghanistan involves not just managing Pakistan's adventurism and China's economic forays, but also deepening multilateral engagements with regional players like Iran and Central Asia. For policymakers, academics, and strategic thinkers, this book for sure offers a crucial lens to evaluate how India can sustain its influence in a volatile Afghanistan while counterbalancing the interplay of the regional and global forces in the 21st century geopolitical order. That's all from me. I think I've stuck to my time of 15 minutes. Thank you so much. I enjoyed reading the work. Thanks to Dr. Vikas for having me here. Thanks for Manorama for conducting a beautiful or organizing it in a beautiful way, and all the people, including the Vice Chancellor who present here, who's been a backbone to both the professors who have edited this work. That's what I understood from the initial remarks, and then also Professor Sharad, who's chairing this session. Thank you so much. Good day.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing deep insights into the book and also emphasizing on how there has been a shift in India's foreign policy in the last 10 years, simultaneously focusing on the dynamic India-Afghanistan relations. So, thank you so much for your deep insights. So, moving on, I would like to invite.
Manova, just a single point that I'd want to add.
Sure,
Yes,
Matlab,
sir.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
such
Yes,
a
sir.
such a elaborate review. Shiraji, in chapter 4, one of the scholar, Abdul Rahim Wabik, actually he's from Afghanistan and he's pursuing his PhD from India, and he has contributed one chapter. Through seminar, we have got one or two scholars, and probably one paper is rejected by scientists. So in a way, we have not revealed the nationality of that particular scholar. So that is no doubt is a limitation, but there is a one more point that one scholar is from the Afghanistan, chapter 4, Abdul Rahim Wardak. Okay.
Thank you, Rajiv ji. Thank you.
So moving on with our next panelist, Professor John Sema. He's a professor of political science at Nagaland University. Over to you, sir. Professor John Sema, sir. Yes, sir.
Mm. Thank you, Manorama and Dr. Vikash, for inviting me to be part of this panel discussion on the books on the emerging dynamics on Afghanistan and India. I will also like to congratulate Professor Rajiv Kumar Singh and Professor Shantesh Kumar Singh for bringing out these books. I have not got much time to go through this book. Only few of the points which I've gone through, and I've really, it. I'm not the expert in the field of this. Particularly, although I teach international relations, but not on Afghanistan and all. But when I go through this, I have seen after the post after the post America left this Afghanistan, and how this the trend, the balance of power in Afghanistan has has been shifted in, and there is a contest for power between the big powers, and particularly after this departure of um, America in in 2022, 21. I mean, this how this the balance of power that has been shifted, and after the taking over of this Taliban, come back to Taliban too after coming back to power, to in the capture of power in Afghanistan. I have really I've gone through this only few of the points, but I really because I have not able to go through the everything in detail, but only the outline of the paper. So I cannot give much inputs on that. But how this India can play a very important role in Afghanistan, despite this India okay, is after the post American departure. But I have seen that how India can also play a very important role, because there is a contest of power, because of Afghanistan being the center of power in the past, and this the Silk Road, and then this the porous border with India and Pakistan, and how this when India is engaged in Afghanistan, then it is this there's a Pakistan has a problem with India in the particularly in the contest for power, and how this China is also playing a dominant partner in this after the post America's departure in Afghanistan. And so there I was really interested to see that how this America has India has played a very important role, and particularly this India, how India has to play diplomatically to involve herself as a very important key player in Afghanistan. And I think almost all the contributor has given a lot of information on this, and particularly that's how India can engage Afghanistan, even to the Taliban, so that India becomes a play very important role. And particularly, I have really interested to see that how this India has also played. India has also invested lots of there's some money in Afghanistan, spending this $3 billion American dollars, and involving in so many development and infrastructure activities, and how this India can also play a very soft powers, particularly in Afghanistan, and also through this how this because now this involving of this China through this Belt and Road Initiative, and now this and China is involving in many projects in Afghanistan. So now, and by doing that, and there again this how this Pakistan is trying to this Islamization of Afghanistan, and then through the radicalization of Afghanistan, and that how that is going to affect in this national interest and in this security concerns. And this is also really a place, very good article I found that. And then how India can also counterbalance by way of engaging Taliban, that even after America's departure in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, and then how India can also, this play a very important role for restructuring and also humanitarian development in Afghanistan, so that India can also become a very key players, and India does not isolate itself in these power struggles, particularly when China is becoming a very dominant player in this Afghanistan. And so then even this Russia is also wants to have her influence, and wants to there's a part of this power struggles, particularly in the geopolitics and global emerging power, where I found that this India is also engaging herself, so that India does not be mere a player, but also becoming a major player. So by not only by doing that, India can also contribute this soft power in the sense of education or technology or infrastructure development, or through India can also engage other Central Asian countries, and particularly I found that Afghanistan is becoming a very important for India in the sense that through Afghanistan, India can contact with other these former Russian republics who were break away from Russian republics. They can also become a very important key players. So I find this book can be a very good for these research scholars and particularly the students of political science and for the students of international politics. Then it will give a lots of insight and how this India can also play to this having a good relation with Pakistan, Afghanistan will also will because of a power, water sharing out of this Indus River because water is also another problems. And if India does not have a good relation with Afghanistan, then India is also going to have a problem. So I think this India should play diplomatically this double track or back channel diplomacy in whatever way. I think if India continue to engage and not be giving away these chances to China or Pakistan or other big players, not to isolate India because once India has been out of this Afghanistan, that is really going to affect India's national interest, particularly from the security and territorial integrated point of view. That is why it becomes very very important that India should continue to engage Afghanistan in whatever possible, in whatever manner, so that India can become a key player even after they suppose America's departure from Afghanistan. So, with these few words, I just want to congratulate the organizer and particularly the two editors, Professor Shantesh Kumar and Professor Rajiv Kumar, and also our Honorable Vice Chancellor of Haryana University for giving this part of this program because I have hardly have time to go through all this the inputs, but I've gone through this the chapter first, where the two editor has given the outline of the books, and it is really as a attracted my attention that it is a really it could be a very good book, but I'm sorry that I could not able to go through all the books, so I will not able to give much inputs in the books, but I can say that overall that the books has reflected this India's engagement from all angles towards this Afghanistan, so that India can also become a very important player in this emerging this Afghanistan India relationship. So with this reward, I thanks the organizer, particularly this Vikash, for inviting me to be part of this program.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Um, Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your invaluable insights in this enriching book discussion. Thank you. So, moving on with our next panelist, Professor A. Muthu Lakshmi. He's a professor of public administration at Central University, Mizoram. Over to you, sir.
Uh, yes, Lakshmi ma'am.
Is she not here?
If he's not there, sir, move to next actually.
Yeah, okay, we can go with our next panel.
Maybe in the last he will speak. Yeah.
Okay, sure. So now I would like to invite Professor N.K. Kumareshan Raja. He is the department. He is a professor at Department of Politics and International Studies, Pondicherry University. Over to you, sir.
Oh, Manorma ji, Kumaresan sir has not here because
He is not joined.
yeah, yes, yes, yes.
So we have Uh,
So then we have all the last no panelists. So because Vikas, do no contact her so that she could
Yes,
join.
yes, sir. Yes. Uh,
Because I think she has some problems, so
yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
we should have
Yes,
no
sir.
concluding remarks from chair.
Yes,
Saras sir.
yes, sir. Sure, sir.
So I would like to invite our chair for today's session, Professor Sharat Kumar Soni, sir. He's a chairperson, Center for Inner Asian Studies, School of International Studies, JNU, New Delhi. Over to you, sir, for the concluding remarks.
Unmute, sir. Please unmute yourself, sir.
Yeah, now is it fine now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Manormaji. You said concluding remarks. In my point of view, there can't be concluding remarks because it's ongoing process. Indo-Afghanistan relations. The title of the book itself is the ongoing process. Given the scenario, what is happening. But anyways, much has been said by the panelists, and I have learned a lot from their viewpoints just now. Especially Professor Nand Kishore, who is a dear friend of mine. However, since I also have to say something, I will not repeat what has been told to us, but say, the book entitled Emerging Dynamics of India-Afghanistan Relations, Regional Cooperation versus Global Geopolitics, which has been edited by Professor Rajiv Kumar and Professor Santesh Kumar Singh. I think is very timely given the fact that of late the geopolitical restructuring in the global landscape has had significant impact on the regional order in which Eurasia and the Indo-Pacific have been witnessing unprecedented developments. And such restructuring, especially in Eurasia, has resulted due to a shift in Russia's Eurasian strategy that includes consolidating the former Soviet space, restoring influence in Central Europe, building a strong alliance with China, and limiting Western influence in the continental heartland. Russia has also engaged itself in a geopolitical competition with the United States and its European allies over the sphere of influence in Ukraine. At the same time, while providing extensive support to Ukraine's war effort and strengthening its alliance in Europe, the United States and its allies in the Indo Pacific region are balancing against rising China. As such, the ongoing geopolitical competition between Russia and the West in Eurasia, as well as the growing tensions between China and the United States in the Indo Pacific, have created a situation where geopolitics has become a talk of the day, where a complex mix of alliances and rivalries with overlapping bilateral, regional, and other types of institutional groupings have emerged. And the emergence of such scenarios has now unfolded varied opportunities and challenges for the stakeholders, including for those belonging to the larger South Asia. Especially these stakeholders also include small states having vulnerability to changes in the external environment in terms of geopolitics. And Afghanistan is one of them. Interestingly, I would also like to bring to your attention towards overall debate on the concept of failed state, which has been contested among the scholars. The critics argue that the concept of failed state is purely Western in nature and that it has been devised to justify the intervention of Western powers in the resource rich countries of the global South, where I would say Afghanistan is a case in point to understand the phenomena of failed state. However, whether Afghanistan is a failed state needs to be examined from the prism of various factors, including the parameters for labeling a state as a failed state. We need to explore the emergence of Afghanistan as a political entity, beginning at least from 18th century until the contemporary times, when the whole course of a state formation of Afghanistan underwent a change following the Taliban takeover and shifting the state from Islamic Republic to Islamic Emirate. Yet the acceptance of the Taliban 2.0 as a de facto government of Afghanistan by most of the population, especially rural, tells a different story. The Taliban regime is getting legitimacy not only from the majority of the people within the country, but also from other countries, despite its mistreatment of women and girls. In such a situation, in order to get a long term legitimacy, what the Taliban needs is to safeguard some of the basic needs of its citizens, regardless of, I would say, gender, ethnic background, religious belief, or even political affiliation, and ensure inclusive governance and a long term political solution to govern the country. The legitimacy of Taliban is of major concern of India as well. So the book, as I said, is very timely to understand India-Afghanistan relations in the current geopolitical scenario. The book, together with all its chapters, provides an in-depth analysis of India-Afghanistan relations in different perspectives. You see, India was the only South Asian, country to recognize the Soviet-backed Democratic Republic of Afghanistan in the 1980s. Though relations were diminished during the 1990s Afghanistan civil war and the Taliban government, India aided the overthrow of the Taliban and became the largest regional provider of humanitarian and reconstruction aid to Afghanistan during Taliban one period, I'll say. Yet it is also important to consider the book in terms of academically keep ourselves updated, especially when the regional dimension had changed. As I said, following the abrogation of Article 370 in India, as Professor Santesh Kumar highlighted it, as well as geopolitical restructuring due to Ukraine war and the development in Indo-Pacific. We cannot ignore what is happening in Afghanistan and its surroundings with the great game still being played in Central Asia. Afghanistan is important being a gateway to Central Asia so far as India is concerned. The foreign policy under Prime Minister Modi has had significant impact to carry out and make a lasting impact on global South with both immediate neighbors as well as the extended neighbors being the primary concerns. Another point to keep in mind is that as terrorism and religious extremism have been the key concern of India's foreign policy, the role of regional security organizations, especially the SCO, is very important, where India-Afghanistan relations too have a major role to play. Afghanistan needs to be balanced on issues like export of extremism or terrorism for that matter. For the last few years, we have been watching how India has been playing a constructive role in regional organizations, not only in SCO, but also in ASEAN and BRICS and other such organizations. Overall, I would say Afghanistan under Taliban 2.0 needs India's support if it has to survive in a better way in the regional and global geopolitical chess game. With these words, I congratulate both the editors of the book for bringing out such an important addition to the existing literature on the subject of India-Afghanistan relations. I thank all the panelists for reviewing the book and making constructive comments about what the book conveys. I also would like to thank Professor Takeshwar Kumar, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of Central University of Haryana, for sparing his valuable time and being with us today in this important event. Last but not the least, I also express my thankfulness to Vikas Kumar for inviting me to be part of this academic exercise. And also, I would like to thank Manorama for conducting this event, so nicely. I would end here. Thank you once again to all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Yes.
much, sir.
Manova, before you move to formal vote of thanks, I would also like to extend my thanks to my most loving Vice Chancellor and
Definitely, sir. You
my
can go
guru,
जी
ahead.
सर.
my mentor, my guardian, Professor Tankeshwar Kumar sir, the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Central University of Haryana, and of course, Professor Sarat sir,
Yes.
who always provide a lot of love to me while I'm here in JNU actually. Sir, thank you so much for joining
Thank,
this very important,
thank you. My pleasure.
event.
My pleasure.
And of course to Vikas Kumar, who has followed us
Thank you, sir.
to be part of this very important discussion. Thank you, Vikas. And of course, Manorma. She has coordinated the event very nicely and very smartly too, because he is going to conclude in given time framework. That is very important part of any event actually, and you have done that excellently. Thank you so much. And last, I would like to extend my thanks to IRSA, the team, the complete team, the whole team, who deserves a lot of no good, remarks from all the experts who are joining this ongoing, series of events basically conducted under the umbrella of this IRSA. They are doing a great work. I wish all the best to all the team members and this particular group and association. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, sir. So, with the permission
I
of
think
Sheriff,
Manorma ji, BC sir want to say something. Sir.
uh, so I would like to invite VC sir for his comments and views.
No, I just want to say congratulations to both of you and all the audience, all the contributor to the book, and it's has really I've listened to all the discussion, and it has been very I say very encouraging to see that the people have contributed to the extent I wish that they should have done. And so I think this is a very good book coming up for the people to know the various aspects of the our relationship from the history to the present one, and maybe we can plan the future based on this book.
And sir,
Thank you very much.
rest assured, we are going to produce more books as per your
Okay.
directions and
All right,
suggestions.
sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Not exactly direction, but your motivation, sir, is very important,
Yeah.
because this seminar is actually the, again I am saying, brainchild of Sam, and again I am thankful to Sarat sir, because at that 2 year back, sir, when I call you for this seminar, probably you are not in India,
Yeah.
and you just text me ki, due to some clear engagement I will be not at that particular time. But
Fair
today
enough.
on the